In the last lesson, you learned about antecedent-based interventions and how they can be used to decrease problem behavior. This lesson will discuss the next category of intervention, consequence-based interventions. This lesson has 5 objectives. They are to explain how consequence-based interventions weaken problem behavior, to define and provide examples of 3 types of consequence-based interventions: extinction, response cost, and timeout. To explain 3 characteristics of extinction: gradual decrease, spontaneous recovery, and extinction burst. To identify 4 ways extinction is applied: sensory extinction, escape extinction, planned ignoring, and response blocking. And to define and provide examples of 3 types of timeout: non-exclusionary, exclusionary, and seclusionary. Consequence-based interventions are designed to weaken the problem behavior in one of 2 ways: by eliminating the reinforcer maintaining the problem behavior, or by providing an aversive consequence contingent on the occurrence of the problem behavior. Practically speaking, the consequences are manipulated so the problem behavior no longer results in favorable objects or events for the child. In other words, the behavior is no longer reinforced. The other option is to provide aversive consequences for the problem behavior so the child is no longer motivated to engage in the problem behavior. In other words, the behavior results in unfavorable consequences. Let's look at how the elimination of the maintaining reinforcer can reduce problem behavior. As you have learned, behavior occurs because it is reinforced. As a result, problem behavior occurs when it is reinforced and does not occur when it is not reinforced. For example, if the reinforcer for Nick's hair pulling is seeing his therapist flinch, then the reinforcer can be eliminated by having his therapist no longer flinch when her hair is pulled. In the absence of the reinforcer, flinching, the problem behavior, hair pulling, is less likely to occur. Consequence manipulations for problem behavior may also include providing aversive consequences contingent on the occurrence of problem behavior. Recall that behavior is strengthened when it is followed by the presentation of a preferred stimulus or removal of an aversive stimulus. Likewise, behavior is weakened when it is followed by the presentation of an aversive stimulus or removal of a preferred stimulus. As a result, the child is not motivated to respond when the consequence for the problem behavior is unfavorable to the child. Let's look at how an aversive consequence can be applied to decrease Jenny's whining behavior. As you recall, Jenny's whining has been reinforced in the past by access to cookies. During her therapy sessions, Jenny earns tokens that she can use to purchase stickers from her therapist. Each time Jenny whines, the therapist takes one of these tokens away. Following the aversive consequence of losing a token, the problem behavior of whining is less likely to occur. There are several types of consequence-based interventions. This lesson will cover 3: extinction, response cost, and timeout. Extinction procedures focus on eliminating the maintaining reinforcer. The remaining 2 interventions, response cost and timeout, are response reduction procedures. Response reduction procedures focus on decreasing problem behavior by providing aversive consequences when problem behavior occurs. We'll begin with extinction. Extinction is the process in which previously reinforced behavior no longer results in reinforcing consequences and therefore stops occurring. Practically speaking, the frequency of problem behavior is reduced because it is no longer being reinforced. So if problem behavior is maintained by access to a toy, then an extinction procedure would involve no longer giving the child a toy when he engages in the problem behavior. Extinction works by eliminating the functional reinforcer for the problem behavior. Therefore, it is important that the reinforcer is accurately identified through an FBA. Implementation of extinction is different for each function of problem behavior. There are several characteristics of extinction. First, extinction typically results in a gradual decrease in problem behavior rather than an immediate or rapid reduction. It may take several days or weeks before problem behavior ultimately stops. Secondly, extinction may result in spontaneous recovery. Spontaneous recovery is when a behavior that has been extinguished occurs again in circumstances in which it was previously reinforced. Practically speaking, spontaneous recovery is when the problem behavior occurs again, even after it has not occurred for some time. If spontaneous recovery occurs and the behavior is not reinforced, the behavior will extinguish again very quickly. However, if spontaneous recovery occurs and the behavior is reinforced, the behavior is strengthened. As a result, it is important to continue to implement the extinction procedure as long as you want the behavior to remain extinguished. For example, Jenny's whining behavior was extinguished by no longer giving her a cookie when she whined. Because of this, Jenny hasn't whined for several weeks. However, recently, Jenny whined when she saw her mom eating a cookie. If Jenny's mom were to give her a cookie when she whines, Jenny will start whining more often. If Jenny's mom does not give her a cookie when she whines, or continues the extinction procedure, Jenny will again stop whining. Another characteristic of extinction is the extinction burst. An extinction burst is when the behavior on extinction briefly increases in frequency, duration, or intensity before it decreases and stops. Novel responses may also occur when extinction is initially implemented. Novel responses are behaviors that typically do not occur in a particular situation. Novel responses may include emotional and aggressive responses, such as crying and hitting. Practically speaking, an extinction burst is when the behavior on extinction actually worsens before it gets better. Let's return to the example of Jenny's whining to illustrate an extinction burst. Jenny's whining behavior is on extinction. In other words, it no longer results in access to cookies. Initially, the frequency, intensity, and duration of behavior increase with Jenny whining more, louder, and longer. New problem behaviors emerge as Jenny starts screaming and jumping in addition to whining. Emotional and aggressive responses also occur as Jenny starts crying and hitting her mom when she doesn't give her the cookies. As long as the reinforcer, a cookie, is not provided, the problem behavior and the other new responses that have emerged during the burst will eventually decrease and stop. However, if Jenny's mom gives her a cookie following an extinction burst, the problem behavior and any other responses that emerge during the burst are strengthened, making all of those responses more likely to occur the next time Jenny wants a cookie. This illustrates the importance of continuing extinction once it has been implemented to avoid reinforcing louder, longer, more frequent whining, screaming, jumping, crying, and hitting. We will now look at how extinction is applied for each of the 4 functions of behavior, starting with socially mediated positive reinforcement. Let's consider an example of extinction to decrease Mark's attention-maintained pinching. When Mark pinches his therapist, she yells, "Ow!" and tells Mark not to pinch. The program supervisor has conducted an FBA and determined that the therapist's attention is maintaining the problem behavior of pinching. Extinction is implemented, and the therapist no longer provides attention of any kind when Mark pinches. The therapist does not flinch, make eye contact, talk to Mark, say "ow," or reprimand him when he pinches. After a while, Mark is no longer pinching. In this example, the functional reinforcer, attention, was no longer provided following the occurrence of problem behavior. Extinction for attention-maintained behavior is also called planned ignoring. because the therapist plans to ignore the behavior when it happens. In the example, the problem behavior was maintained by social positive reinforcement in the form of attention, so attention was no longer provided. In the case of problem behavior maintained by access to tangible items, such as the example of Jenny's whining, the specific snack, toy, or activity that previously reinforced the behavior is withheld. Extinction can also be used to decrease problem behavior maintained by social negative reinforcement. In these cases, escape from the aversive demand, setting, or sensory stimulus is the functional reinforcer, so during extinction, escape is not allowed. Escape extinction is another name for extinction for problem behavior maintained by social negative reinforcement. Let's look at an example of extinction for Liz's problem behavior of hitting. The program supervisor has conducted an FBA and determined that escape from demands is maintaining Liz's problem behavior of hitting. Liz has been hitting her therapist to avoid completing a task. The therapist is teaching Liz to answer social questions. The therapist asks, "What is your name?" And Liz hits the therapist because in the past, hitting was reinforced by a break from demands. Now, using extinction, the therapist does not allow Liz to take a break, but rather continues to present demands when Liz hits. So after Liz hits, the therapist repeats the question, "What is your name?" The therapist continues to repeat the question, "What is your name?" and prompts, "Say Liz," to ensure compliance with the demand as long as Liz continues to hit. After a while, Liz is no longer hitting when asked social questions. If a problem behavior is maintained by escape from a setting, the therapist would keep the child in that setting when problem behavior occurs. Similarly, if the behavior is reinforced by escape from sensory stimuli, the therapist would continue to present the sensory stimulus when problem behavior occurs.